think you're going to find I'm not real big on opening statements. So if you got something you want to shoot out there, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, since we got Kirk Cousins coming up, just talk about how he's doing with the new system, and I know there's a lot of similarities, and just overall how he's learning and progressing and everything.
Yeah, he's doing great. Kirk's got a lot of experience, a lot of games played, and a lot of experience with a lot of concepts that we run. Some of it might be just kind of detailed a little bit differently. The read might be slightly different. So those are some things that he's kind of adjusting to. But his ability to reference things that he's already experienced is a huge asset for us, and just kind of tweak instead of it being a whole new concept, whole new system. So he's kind of able to take these past experiences, say this is what's happened to me in the past, and we kind of say, well, this is how we're going to do it to help you there, and he's coming along really well.
Like him, what's it like working through those processes of kind of established habits or traits that you kind of want to maybe tweak or adjust with him? I mean, what's that working relationship like?
Sorry, the first part of the question?
When you have a veteran quarterback like him who's been around and seen so much, has established maybe traits or habits, what is that process like of working with him in terms of having that kind of back and forth relationship?
It's really beneficial. I mean, he's more like a coach in the meeting room. When you talk to a guy that's got this much experience and has had success in this league, it was a lot like when Matthew Stafford came in, and they can reference plays, specific plays. Oh, that was 2015. We were playing the Eagles, and pull up the play and actually, and you say, oh yeah, that is the same. That's exactly what we're talking about there. So. He's really into football. He's a very hard worker. It's something I've always respected about Kirk, even when we were in Washington. He loves football. He loves the process. He grinds at it, and it's always going to be a little bit of a verbiage change. When you get the new verbiage and you have to kind of connect it to the things you've done in the past. But I think we've gotten through that phase now, and he's gotten a lot more comfortable spitting out the play calls and being able to visualize where everyone's at and all the different formations and that sort of thing.
Must you guys simplify verbiage at all when you're implementing with a new team, or you just sort of like, is it more effective over time to just throw everybody in the fire and let them get caught up in the offseason?
Yeah, it's a great question. For us, we want to challenge the guys. It's a little more throw them into the fire as far as verbiage is concerned. We did change. You always have some terms that came from something specific in LA. Where we called a menu. We had the Rampage menu. I don't know if anyone even knows that that's the mascot in LA. But yeah, Rampage, in case you didn't know. But didn't want to use that word. There's certain things that we change. Or, my dad always had an old story about when he was in Philadelphia with Buddy Ryan, and Buddy was calling. I don't even remember the name. He was calling one of their pressures like Carl or something, and he said, well, why is it called Carl? He said, because in Chicago, Carl was the free safety, and he blitzed. He said, well, we don't have Carl, but these guys don't know Carl. So there's some things like that we change to try to make it a little more seamless transition. But in general, we've put just about everything we can on these guys as far as all the formations. We want these guys to know that we can line them up in any spot we want to, based on the game plan, based on matchups, and they're handling it really well.
So the Victor menu is taking shape then?
We decided against Victor menu. I mean, there was some talk about the Ragnar menu. It ended up going to the Rage menu. So we're gonna. That's what Rampage turned into.
Obviously with BC Johnson before, but he was talking to us just about how being forced to take a year off with injury, he almost regained his passion for football. I guess just what have you seen from him in the meeting room and in that group so far?
With BC and really with that whole receiver group, I couldn't be more pleased with their attention to detail There is a lot of detail, maybe more on receivers than maybe some, I don't want to say standard system, I don't know what the word is, but we put a lot on those guys' plate. We're not going to call and tag every little thing for those receivers to do, whether it's run game, pass game. There's a lot of intricacies as to, I got to cut down my split here. I've got to understand all these code words. We're not going to just spell it out and have the longest play calls known to man. Everything's coded, everything's got the ability to get up to the line of scrimmage and go fast. And ultimately that's what we want, so we can put pressure on the defense when we choose to. And BC, Keenan McCardell has done a phenomenal job. Couldn't be more pleased with Keenan and the job he's done with those guys, getting them up to speed.
What are your impressions of Kellen Mond so far?
Kellen is very sharp. He has really picked up the offense very well. I don't know if you guys have seen him out here every day working with Gerard Johnson, extra drill work, really working on his fundamentals. He's really done a nice job getting up to speed with our offense, our terminology. He's calling the plays really well in the huddle, and his eyes are in the right place. So obviously limited full speed reps in this type of atmosphere. So training camp's going to give us a little bit better picture of all these guys, but so far so good.
What parallels can you draw between Justin and Kupp now that you've seen Jefferson a lot out here on the field?
They're different players, but I think they're both very instinctive and both have a natural ability to separate kind of. There's some guys that just have a natural way of always working edges on guys. That's what we're looking for from the receiver group. You're never running straight down the middle of someone. You're always working an edge, just like a pass rusher is always working an edge on an offensive lineman. And some guys just have it a little more naturally, and I think they're similar in that aspect. They both can really play underneath themselves, where they can, what we say, double up a guy, run a choice route, make good decisions. So they have some football intelligence, some instincts. Now they're different as far as the types of balls that maybe are activated. Maybe you didn't see Cooper Kupp, catching 60-yard bombs quite as often as maybe Justin Jefferson, but you're seeing him a lot more underneath. The thing that's exciting that is very similar to Cooper is they can play all the spots. So you have the ability to take them and move them where you want them and where you think you can get a good matchup, and then the ability to win at all levels, underneath, intermediate, and the deep balls over the top.
That's the tough thing, though, correct? When a guy can move, it draws it forces the defense's hand. Is that correct?
And absolutely, and even in a zone coverage, without getting like technical, but they're going to line, if they're in nickel defense, right? They have an extra DB. They're going to line that nickel to the passing strength more often than not. And the last drive of the Super Bowl, if you watch, we had several plays where Cooper Kupp was aligned over to the tight end side away from the passing strength. So if you're in a zone defense, then you've got a linebacker matching that guy. So just the ability to be able to move those guys when you want to and get them in the spots where they can be most effective is huge.
Receivers having some unspoken maybe responsibilities or just inherent stuff they got to do. What's the benefit of that as a play caller for the offense and just having them kind of know what they got to do?
Well, I think just the nature of the verbiage and this offense, where a lot of times we're calling more than one play in the huddle. So if you're just calling plays and running them against any look that they present, or the Q has to know certain audibles, he has to learn things without saying two plays in the huddle, it can be more difficult there. So when you're calling multiple plays, trying to limit that verbiage as much as possible. And then there's also just things that we want them to kind of conceptualize. We want them to understand concepts. And if most of the stuff, once they really nail down on the concept, then they're able to understand why they need to cut down or why they need to widen out or when can I cheat my split, or when do I need to, change my alignments just based on the play.
What are you most wanting to learn about the run game before pads go on, or get into preseason games?
What am I most eager to learn about the run game?
Or what do you want to see from them? Like what sets you up for the season?
Well, ultimately, you want to see an ownership of those concepts that we've installed. We are doing a little bit different type concepts, maybe some more what they called outside zone is maybe more what we would call mid-zone type concepts, and we're already starting to see that. The jog throughs are very helpful to start to see angles and understanding. You guys have seen with LA and probably with us, we have a lot of fly motions from the receivers, or jet motions, and so all of that's great, but there's a response that happens when you're running a jet motion and handing the ball off. How are these things affecting these concepts? So that's kind of the intricacy. It's easy to say, hey, just throw a jet motion on this open side zone play, but to understand the reaction, the movement, okay, it's zone, where they're going to go. All right, it's man, they're not going to move. We're going to have someone traveling. Maybe that adjusts our point from the center position. So all of those things, there's a lot of detail that goes into it, but ultimately it's going to be how physical these guys come off the ball. I mean, that's a lot to talk about scheme. Ultimately, it's going to be about them getting their cleats in the ground, coming off the football, and moving defenders.
I know Irv isn't fully going just yet, but what do you like about the tight end group here? And do you find yourself still spending a lot of time with that group? That was your position last year.
I was with tight ends for a long time, so I got kind of a spot in my heart for those guys. But Irv really just recently, just last week, I remember he ran a seam where he had to bend inside versus cover two, and he really stuck his foot in the ground and he ripped in there. I said, wow, that's the Irv that I saw on tape from a couple years ago right there. So he's progressing really well. He's working with Tyler and their crew, and Josh Hingst and those guys. So I think he's well on his way. Again, like everyone, he's kind of learning mentally, all of these guys, learning the system, learning all the little tags and the things that aren't tagged. But right now, they've got a great coach in Brian Angelico. He's coaching them hard, and we're excited about where they are. It's just, seeing them actually physically run block is something we haven't seen, unless we've seen it on tape. But in the past game, they're doing really well.
Johnny here as someone who knows what you want to see out of that position and some of the concepts.
It's been helpful for a lot of guys, not only that tight end room, but he's able to share kind of a lot of the similarities, a lot of the things that are the same, and then we try to keep him on his toes by changing a few things as well.
It's super early, but how do you kind of size up the competition at right guard? It looks like Jesse Davis and Reed have been working most of the first team snaps there so far.
Yeah, I mean we've got a lot of time before we actually decide as far as who's starting day one, game one against the Green Bay Packers. But we like the group that we have. We like that there's a pool of talent there, and a lot of guys who have a lot of different skill sets that we can just kind of throw them out there and see how they progress, keep coaching them, and kind of see who rises to the top. But we're happy with that group.
Thanks, Coach.